But anyways, thank you again for joining us for today's webinar. I'd like to take this time right now to go over a few housekeeping items to make sure that you have a great experience during today's webinar. All attendees have joined us on mute mode and will not be seen on screen. Only the presenters will be visible to everyone. However, if you have any questions for our panelists anytime during the webinar, please consider entering them in the question and answer box located at the bottom of your screen. Interpreters and live captioning are provided during today's webinar. Thank you to our interpreters and our captionists for helping us make today's webinar accessible to all of our RIT Tigers. Now, today's webinar will be recorded and available, complete with captions and everything, in approximately about 7 to 10 business days following today's events. If you have any technical questions throughout today's webinar, please feel free to type those into the chat box, and we'll do our best to get you the appropriate answers and figure everything out. Now, on to the big show, the webinar. I'm going to now pass the virtual mic to Kris Stehler from Career Services, who will moderate our discussion with alumna Nidhi Verma, graduate from the class of 2007. Kris, the floor is yours.
Good evening. I'm Kris Stehler, Assistant Director for Alumni Relations in the RIT Office of Career Services. I'd like to also welcome you to tonight's program and remind you that as alumni, you have continued access to all our career services and programs, including our Career Connect job system, our career fairs and events, and one-on-one career advisement. So now I'd like to introduce our guest. Nidhi Verma is a 2007 alum from the MS Computer Engineering program and is a principal program manager at Microsoft Corporation in Redmond, Washington. She works in M365 OneDrive and SharePoint organization on backend features related to security and reliability of service, streamlined deployment of cloud service, and increased developer productivity. She has been here for 4 years, and prior to this, she has worked in SQL Server division within Microsoft. Her leadership style is leading by examples and delivering results via collaborative work style. Throughout her career, she has worked in different roles and collaborated with diverse geo-dispersed teams. So welcome, Nidhi, and we'll get started now.
Thank you so much.
So, Nidhi, I'd like to start, and if you could just describe your career path for us.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kris. First off, thank you so much, for having me over. It's great to be virtually on campus. It's a great question to describe my career path. I would probably describe that by taking you all 10 years back in time. So I was an international student. I joined RIT in the master's program of computer engineering. I'd actually joined master's in computer science, to be honest, and then I switched to computer engineering because the program was very enticing. So I did that, and then I completed my master's and my thesis. And right after that, I joined Microsoft. My original plan, was to join for a year. I thought, hey, I'll just join for a year, then I'll come back to the East Coast, do something else. But I've been here for 14 years at Microsoft ever since then. So that was a quick summary of my career over the last 14, 15 years.
Great. And what or who helped you the most getting started in your field?
That's a great question. I would probably say it was my dad. So my dad is a mechanical engineer. So my immediate family consists of my parents and my younger sister. This is me and my sister. And the place where I come from, I guess they prefer son over daughter. They're the gender bias a little bit over there. But my dad, always said that there is no difference between genders. Anybody can do what they want. And he really encouraged me to do my bachelor's in computer science, and then, encouraged me to do master's in computer science. And then, so, that's what I did. He really, really encouraged us to study, to work hard, to, make an identity of our own. And my mom, I remember she would always say that, as a woman, you always have to be very independent. So she's, always promoted and always encouraged us to study really hard and, do something for ourselves. So both, I think my parents, have been monumental, and, they've played a tremendous role in, really, helping me get where I am. So I'm really, really grateful for that. And in addition to that, when I joined RIT, that was an amazing experience as well. Honestly, where I am right now, a lot of it goes back to my foundation and my studies. So I really thank RIT as well, and the career services program over there as well. So thank you.
Great, thank you. So let's talk first about the job search. I know everybody on the call is very interested in your thoughts on the job search process. So let's break it down. Let's start with resumes.
Yeah.
What do you feel are the most important parts of a successful resume?
That's actually an excellent question. As a part of my role, I do interviews as well, and we go through a lot of resumes. I would say there are a couple important aspects of a resume. When you write a resume, it should really be outcome focused. What I mean by that is, sometimes I see a resume, there's lots of words, it's very busy. Don't do that. Have fewer, crisper bullets with just the outcomes. What did you do? What did you deliver? What needle did you move, right? So that's very, very important. The other thing I would say, I think the structure matters a lot, right? So start with your most recent work and focus on the most impactful work first. And in general, resume, like as a new grad or in a recent alum, probably a page or a page and a half is enough. Do not write stories on it. And I'm happy to take questions and any specific things, but I would say there's two things. One is be very outcome focused, have the structure very clean and simple. And one last thing, if I could say, don't lie on a resume. Sometimes, I feel like, people, they write more than, the experience says, but it's very easy to spot it out. So even if it's not enough, keep it simple and keep it outcome focused. I would say those things would definitely help, land a job with the resume.
Okay, I like how you say that it should be outcome focused. I think that's very important, and many students and maybe alumni as well don't necessarily focus on their outcomes. So I think that that's a very important point to make. What about classes? Are those important courses to include on your resume?
I think it's important, depending, where you are, if you just, a recent grad, I think it's important to write that down. But what I would also focus a bit more is, in addition to your classes, like, if you've done a project, if you've delivered something in collaboration with your classmates or, some other, university students, right? Focus on a project, focus on something that you built, focus on something that you improved. So classes is good because honestly, a lot of people take classes, but what will make you distinguished amongst everybody else is what else did you do? What else did you create? How creative were you? Did you use any existing technology to build something new? Did you solve a problem, even if it's a small problem? So focus on that as well, because those things, really, help you stand out of the crowd, if I may.
I like how you said that too. It's important to separate yourself from the competition. What about extras like clubs or interests or leadership experiences?
That's actually a great one. I do feel that, in today's world, just the studies and the classes you've taken, or what work you did is not enough. You do have to portray a 360 view of yourself. So even, now, it's not just the work that I focus on. I do a lot of, cultural related activities, a lot of diversity and inclusion related activities. So you as students as well should focus on that. For example, if you were part of a club, on campus at RIT or outside, do include that. If you helped in improving a culture, do call that out, because as employer, they just don't want somebody who's smart. They want somebody who is well-rounded, right? It's not just the person that gets hired eventually. It's the potential that we hire eventually as well. So definitely, I would definitely encourage to reserve some section of your resume. If you've been part of some cultural activity, you've improved something, definitely call that out. It definitely helps in the resume being standing out, but also, shining light on yourself, which is a good thing.
Great, thank you. How about, let's move on to interviews. How do you recommend preparing for an interview? If there was one interview tip that you could recommend for new grads or for young alumni, what would that be?
Yeah, I think that is the overloaded question. I think there are different tips and tricks, right? What works, what doesn't work. Let me just share what works in general for interviews, and then maybe we can focus a bit on interviews during pandemic, and then I'll share my one favorite tip. So to start with, I would say know your resume really, really well, because part of the interview process is people want to know you, right? What have you done? What was your experience? So know your resume really well. It should not be that you have to go back and refer to your resume. So know that really well. And again, this goes back to don't lie, because if there's something that is not true, it doesn't reflect well over there. The next thing I would do is do your research on the job well, right? Of course, there's a job description, but try to read more on the company. Try to read similar jobs of the company. So that actually helps as a part of the interview process as well. Next, I would say is prepare for some scenarios and examples of your previous experience that can relate to the job. For instance, let's say if you're applying for a system engineer's job, right? Go and research more and understand what the job was about. Understand what are the scenarios that you would be working with, and then try to relate it back to your own experience, your own background. So that will help you in the interview process. I think I've also seen if you do a mock interview, like if you practice interview with your friend, if it's in person, do that. Or if it's a virtual interview, then try doing it like how we're doing over here. Try doing a practice interview over Zoom or Slack or Teams, hopefully, if you folks are using that. I would definitely say that. And part of the interview process itself, I would also encourage you to ask clarifying questions, part of the interview. We definitely value if you ask questions in terms about the job or, what do we do at the role at the company. So definitely, reserve some time and have some clarifying questions for the interviewer as well. That definitely helps. Coming to one interview tip, I would say is be relaxed and have fun. It is an interview. I know it can get a little stressful, and I know it's easier said than done, but it's very important to be yourself, right? Unless you are yourself, you will not shine yourself, right? So be yourself, relax. It's an interview, end of the day, and that will help, really your creativity flow through. It'll, really shine light on yourself. So I hope that is helpful for the folks in the audience. But that's like my years of, I guess, what I've learned over last 15 years.
Lots of good information in there for sure. Thank you. How about overall tips for a successful job search? What do you think works for the search process itself, and what doesn't work?
Yes, that's a good question as well. I will share what I've learned personally, with myself, and what I've observed some folks go through their journey. I'll start by acknowledging that it is hard. It is hard to find a job, especially if there's a certain kind of job that you want to get. So one thing I will start by saying is keep on trying, keep your options open. And this is what comes back to networking as well. To have your options open and to keep on trying, you need to have a good network at work, network at at school, and network outside school. It really helps. The more people you know and the more people know you, they can help you get a job. They can maybe forward your resume somewhere, or they can give you a lead about upcoming job opening somewhere. Those things definitely help. I would say those three things, at a high level, they help. Now, of course, we can get into specific jobs for a specific field as well, but at a high level, I would say keep on doing that. And when I was in RIT, I did leverage a lot of services from the RIT career services. So you folks are in a good school. There's a great career service. Do leverage that. I know there are lots of great folks out there, who will give you the right advice. I did leverage that many, many years back. So I would definitely shine some light on that as well.
Great. And you mentioned networking. So let's delve into networking more. Can you talk more about the importance of networking in a job search and beyond on the job? It sounds like you've taken advantage of that. So can you talk more about that?
Yeah, so my network right now is huge, but when I started off right after school, it wasn't that big. I only knew my friends, or I knew some people who were working. So I started small, but I would say having a network is important, right? Having a network, it always helps you. Like, for example, I have folks in my network who are from my organization, who are from Microsoft, and who are not in Microsoft, who are outside the company. I tend to have a diverse set of folks in the network. So, folks who you can reach out if you need some help, or folks who can guide you, folks who can, mentor you if you need to, because really, it is not a destination, it's a journey. So, having a good set of folks in your network really, really helps. And honestly, it's not something that you can build overnight. It takes time. You have to invest in building your network. And as a part of that, you also have to be in other people's networks. So, you can help them out. So really, it's a community and you need to build that up over the course of time. And I would say a lot of network starts in school. Like I'm still in touch with folks that I did my, master's class in like so many years back. We're still in touch and, we reach out when we need to. That's what I would say. And, I hope, I know it's a generic answer, but, I hope that is kind of helpful in that regards.
So it sounds like alumni are a good place to kind of help build your network, whether you're still a student or whether you've graduated and you're a young alumni. It sounds like other alumni are a good place to kind of start and build your network.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. And, in today's era, there are a lot of tools available to be, to network. Like LinkedIn is an awesome tool I would, call out. Facebook, not as much. I guess that's more of a social platform, but you could start networking from there on.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I think LinkedIn is a great thing that we always recommend. And I'd like to put a plug in for our new system for networking, our new platform called Tigers Connect. And that's a new platform that we've just started, and it allows alumni to connect with other alumni, and it allows students to connect with alumni as well. So just putting a plug in for that. So networking, I agree with you, is very important. We did have a question before the presentation started. What if you don't have much experience in the field? What would you recommend for helping to try and find a job?
Yeah, that's an amazing question, and I get that a lot of that. If you don't have experience in a particular field, I would say do something to build that experience, right? What I mean by that is it could be as simple as doing a project in that field or joining a nonprofit, right? It's important to demonstrate experience in that field. So I know that we don't build these things overnight, right? Like it's just hard. We don't do that, but you have to demonstrate that experience. You have to do a project or something in the nature that will help you demonstrate that, oh yes, I have some experience. And on top of that, show the potential that you have the potential to learn and grow. Because as employers, right, what employers normally look is not just what you have done in the past, but also what's your future potential. So shine light on what you have done, and if you've not done it, build on that. And the second thing is just show your future potential. That really helps, because I don't think it's a small sprint, it's a marathon that we're in.
Great. So in general terms, and I know you've done some interviewing and hiring before, what do you think are the top qualities employers look for in a candidate?
None of these are actually technical qualities, let me just say that. But I feel the top qualities that employers look for in the candidate, and we do at Microsoft as well, is how creative you are, right? Like we want to know how creative you are. Can you create solutions? Can you reuse existing technology, and can you do something new and better? The other thing is, if you're tenacious, are you persistent? Are you okay to fail fast? Are you okay to fail and learn from it and never give up? That is another important quality, that employers look for. And the third one is around collaboration. We can only go so far as individuals, right? They say if you want to go fast, you go alone. If you want to go far, you go together. So if you're collaborative, are you easy to work with? Are you going to be fun? Are you going to be a joy to be around, right? Are you willing to collaborate and reach out to different people? And are you okay to take diverse feedback and diverse perspectives and obviously, improve and grow from that on? I would say those are, I guess, the three top qualities, which sounds odd. None of this is really technical. Like I'm not saying that you should be great in one technology or the other, but like I said, it's a marathon that we're in. And these qualities really help and help you shine out and stay out of, distinguish yourself away from most of the folks.
That's great. And those are the qualities, as you mentioned, that you can transfer into any type of job if you show that you're willing to demonstrate those.
That is true. And just sharing a bit about myself, when I joined Microsoft, I had joined in SQL Server team, and I had joined in as a developer. The experience is really different. But then along the journey, I switched to be a program manager. So like I said, these skills and qualities helps you even change discipline if you want to. I'm not saying you need to, but it really helps you in being very versatile and flexible.
Mhm. Great. Let's talk a little bit about the pandemic. It's kind of hard not to talk about that nowadays. How do you think pandemic has changed job searching? And really, how do you make yourself a good candidate in the time of COVID and after the time of COVID?
Yeah, I think that with pandemic, I feel like job searches maybe become a bit easier. And the reason, I say that is because now everything is online. All of the interview is online, and also a lot of, big companies, they are open to remote working, and there's hybrid, work as well. So you don't really have to be in the city to work with. So I feel that maybe job search has become a little bit more easier, and maybe even the jobs are more open because you don't have to be in the city that the job is posted in. But that's just my sense of looking at the industry and the different trends. I'm curious to know, if we have time, I'm curious to know from the audience if they feel the same or they feel different on this one.
Okay. Hopefully we'll get some questions from that. That's an interesting perspective. I agree with you, though. Everything's online, so that changes things from what we're used to, for sure.
That is true.
All right, so while we wait to see if there's any questions, let's move on a little bit and talk about kind of success on the job. We've geared this towards young professionals, whether it's graduating students or young alumni. And as people get ready to start their first professional job, what do you think the keys to success are?
Again, I guess this is, none of this is real technical, but what I would say, when you start a job or when you're really, really new to any role, I would say be curious to learn. I think, it is so important to be curious. It is so important to be open to trying out new things. It actually helps us individuals grow, but it also helps the broader organization and the company as well. So I would say there are 3 keys to success. One is be curious, right? Be open to learning things. And the second is be brave. Sometimes, we think, oh, is this the right thing to do? What will the other person think? A lot of things, goes in our head, and, we don't tend to be brave at times. I would say be brave, try out new things. It's a job at the end of the day, right? It's important to be happy in that. Sometimes I myself get a little bit too stuck, in our day-to-day role. And the third thing is enjoy what you're doing, right? Unless you enjoy what you're doing, no matter if it's your first job or it's, after 10 years, if you don't enjoy your role, you will not grow. You will not do good things. It will not be as beneficial for you or the organization or your team. So do what you love. I think it really, really helps if you do that.
Okay, great. And I'd like to encourage everyone, go ahead and put your questions in the chat box. We want to make this about you and what you're interested in. So let's go ahead and ask those questions. And we have a question. If all employers keep steering me towards pure engineering jobs, how do I get them to consider me for other roles?
That's a good question. I would say the first thing is let them know your intent, right? Let's say if they're steering you towards a particular kind of role and you don't want to do it. I would say the first thing is let them know that, hey, I don't want this kind of role. I'm looking for, I don't know, more operations role, or I'm looking for, a program manager role. Let them know your intent. And the second thing I would say is take a look at your resume and see, is there a reason, they are steering you towards that role? And I would say, have your resume being looked over by someone else? Sometimes, if it's our own resume, it's hard to see certain things. So I would say, ask them, let them know your intent and let them know what you're interested in. Second, look at your resume. Maybe your resume is pivoted towards those kind of roles and it's not maybe evident, but have a friend take a look, have a mentor take a look, have someone, at the career services take a look and get some advice. I think getting some outside in perspective may help. I don't know if that's helpful, but I would start with those things.
And that's good because you mentioned initially when we talked about resumes that you really need to target them. So I think that's very important, right? If your resume is targeted towards something, they're only going to see you for that particular role, right?
Yeah, that is true. And one tip I would share is if you look at the job description, if there are certain keywords in there, try putting those keywords in the resume. That might steer your resume in a different direction. You don't know that. I mean, it might just help. I've seen sometimes it helps in that way because uh, your resume is, your representation, right? So make sure it's pivoted towards what you want.
Right. And then you mentioned letting them know that this is not what you want, that you want something else. Is there a way, how do you get like an advocate or a mentor at work that can help you kind of move into a different role?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I think so. It depends. If you are very early in your career, let's say, the only person you know right now is your recruiter, and let's say you applied for a role and they were steering to engineering role and you don't want that. Maybe you could circle back to the recruiter and say, hey, by the way, I know that you're steering me towards this and this role, but I am more interested in, you can say I'm not interested in role A, I'm interested in role B, but just don't stop there. Explain to them, why do you want role B? Why will you be more impactful in role B? Show some past experiences, show some classes that you have taken. So I would say start with that. Now, again, if you're already working, if you're in a company already and you want to change roles, then I think it's a little bit easier, because then you could talk to more folks in your company itself. You could talk to a mentor. You can talk to I don't know, some team that you're interested in, and start from there on. But I think a lot of it goes back on just raising hand and letting other people know what you want. It sounds very simple, but sometimes we don't do that, and we get stuck with where we are. I hope those tips would be helpful to the submitter.
I can see where young alumni or people who are just starting out might feel intimidated to ask for help too.
That is true. Yeah. I mean, they could, yes, it is overwhelming, right? Especially if you're, doing a kind of role and you want to make a switch. It's like, oh, should I do the switch? Will I be successful in that? How will my existing team perceive me? But, to be honest, a lot of things, goes in our head, we think too much. It goes back to do what you love, right? If you love, if you want to do role B, and if you think you'll be great at role B, go do that. Probably, I'm sure you'll have more fun, and especially if you have more fun, you'll be more creative, you'll bring much more broader goodness. So it all goes back to, what you want to do. And one thing I want to share, Kris, with you more that I know I realized is we spend almost half our jobs at work. And to be honest, in the pandemic and everything right now, almost 10 to 11 hours, we work. So it's important to do what you like, right? Important to have fun over there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's a very good point. So another question, speaking of different experience, does it deter employers when they see a candidate with experience from a variety of different fields and that there's been a gap between employment?
It depends. How do you pivot that? Generally, no. Generally, I would say no. But that being said, I would make sure that, let's say if you're submitting your resume, you do pivot your resume in a certain way that it doesn't show that, you have a diverse experience. Maybe you can organize in a certain way where you highlight the relevant experience, relevant project, whatever you've done upfront at the very top. And the second thing that you mentioned about having a gap, not always, people take gap, honestly, it's work and life together. A lot of people take a gap from things. As long as you're able to explain it, or you can share if you feel comfortable sharing. I know a lot of new moms, they take a break, when their kids are small, and then they come back to work, and I think it's perfectly fine. We shouldn't worry about it too much.
What if, okay, so how would you explain a gap? Because maybe I got laid off at the beginning of COVID and it's taken me, a long time to find a job. How do you explain something like that?
I would say exactly what you said. I would say that, hey, I was working at a particular role, and because of COVID, because of financial reasons, my role was eliminated. You were not eliminated. I think it's important to say that the role was eliminated. And the way I would say is, hey, my role was eliminated. I didn't have a job, but let me tell you what I've done in that last, whatever, 1 year. I've taken some extra projects. I have worked for a nonprofit, right? I have used the time to grow myself. So pivot it in a certain way that it actually reflects good on you. It's not like, oh my God, I didn't have a job. It's like, yes, things were tough. I didn't have a job, but you know what? I made lemonade out of the lemon. I would pivot it that way.
I love that. That's a perfect response. That's great. Making lemonade.
It's life, right? At the end of the day, it's life, and we have to make the best of it, really.
Right, exactly. Yes. Okay, here's another question. If a job application wants references or to contact my current manager, but I don't want my manager to know I'm looking for a new job, how should I handle this question?
Ooh, nice one. Yes. I'll share my personal perspective. I don't know if it's generic or not. I would ask the requester that, hey, it may not be feasible to let my manager know because, hey, I have not got a job yet. That being said, ask them if they're okay to getting a reference from somebody else, maybe a close friend of yours at work or somebody outside your immediate team. So of course, they want references, but ask them if they are okay on taking, alternate references, but not just your manager yet. And what you can say is, hey, once I have a job offer or, if I'm very close in that process, then you could reach out to my manager. But right now, I'm not okay doing that, but I have some alternate references. And if, depending, where you are in your journey, maybe you could, ask your professors or, school to give references. I know RIT has been really good for me for giving references. I would leverage alternate sources over there. But I know this is a tricky one because you want to move, but you don't want them to reach out to your manager, right?
Right.
It's a very tricky spot to be in.
Right. Exactly. Okay, that sounds good though. That sounds like a good solution.
Yeah, that's what I've done in the past. And
Okay.
I don't know if there's a perfect solution to that, but we have to make it work.
Right, exactly. Exactly. Another question. How important is the cover letter in a job application? And do you have any tips for a cover letter?
Back in the day, cover letter was a big thing I remember. Nowadays, I think resume is what folks look at. Maybe, it's just lack of time, right?
Mm-hmm.
I feel cover letter is not as important as having a very impactful, crisp, and simple resume, which really tells about you. What have you done? This goes back to, the resume on how should your resume be structured and what you should do. Focus on the resume, focus on the impact, focus on what did you do? What needle did you move really? Cover letter is good. Like if you have time, attach it, but most folks just go straight to the resume and they want to see, they want to know more about you, which I think resume does a better job than a summary cover letter.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Okay. Here's another question. Having relocated to a brand new area, do you have any tips for a job search without a large existing industry for engineers? So maybe these people might be like unaware of what's out there in an area that they just moved to.
Probably. Let me see. I would say, we have internet almost everywhere. I think a good place to start would be just looking what is in your area. I know it's hard, but let's say if you go to a new city, try searching. Like, for example, if I move to, I don't know, Minnesota or something, I would search, hey, what are the tech companies in that area? I would say internet is the best friend right now to look for, what sort of companies are there in that neighborhood. With everything being online, let me take a step back. I would say use the internet to find the companies, right? Most companies, obviously they have some email address or someone to reach out to. Try searching them on LinkedIn as well. Try finding contacts that way. I would probably steer in that direction. Because no one is in offices these days, you just can't walk in and say, hey, can I speak to somebody? Or hey, I need some information. Everything is online. So we have to use the information available online and make the best of it.
That makes sense. Something else that might be helpful is to use a professional association. If you're a member of an association, you might be able to find contacts in a new area.
That would be that would be helpful if you're part of that group or somebody who's part of that group. Yes, absolutely.
And speaking of, are you in any professional associations? And what's your opinion on them? How important are they?
Yeah, so when early on in my career, I was part of professional the engineering organization. I was part of that. I think it was helpful because I made a lot of my network grew because of that, and I got to know a lot of people. Right now in my career stage, I'm not part of any professional organization. Probably I should be. It's always good to know new people and grow your network. I feel it's very, very helpful if you're early on in your career and you want to know more folks. You want to just having a diverse perspective on different things. In general, it's a good idea to have it. And, if you have a chance to do it, then definitely do it.
Okay, great. So you're a manager now. How did you become a manager? What did you need to do to get promoted?
Yeah, I'm a program manager. So I'm hesitating a bit. I have a mentor, and she asked me the exact same question this morning. The one thing I said to her was, in order to be promoted or in order to be at a certain level, you have to start demonstrating at that level. What I mean by that is, let's say, you're at level 1 and you have to go to level 2. The step 1 is to know, what does level 2 mean, right? How do they measure you at level 2? What are the kind of things that you need to demonstrate? And start demonstrating that at level 1. Once you start demonstrating, those skills, those things that the employer is looking for at level 2, you will get promoted. And I think promotion, is just, a stage. It's more important to focus on the career and focus on yourself and really think of it as, a long-term marathon, and not just that, hey, I want to go to that level. It's more like, hey, I want to grow myself. I want to do bigger things. I want to take on more roles. I want to stretch myself. And not just at work. It's also important to make sure that you have, make an impact on the cultural side as well. This goes back to the resume where we were talking about, is it important to talk about culture and things that you did, in terms of, let's say, diversity and inclusion, or improving something? So this goes back to that, and I think it definitely helps.
Okay, great. So you mentioned a mentor. You mentioned that a couple of times. So you have a mentor at work. How did you get a mentor, and why is it important to have one?
Yeah, that's a good one. I think when you're working, I think it's, fairly easy to get a mentor, I would say, because, let's say you look up to somebody and then you can just say, hey, I'm looking for a mentor. And I've had many different mentors. I have 2 mentors right now. The way I look for mentors is at different, stages of life, I'm looking for certain things. So when I find somebody who's already doing those things, I look up to somebody and I just send a quick email and I say, hey, Adam, so and so, I'm really impressed by, what you've been doing. And, I also am looking to learn more and, get your viewpoint. So are you open to mentoring me for, I don't know, like, are you open to meeting me once a month or something of that nature? So that's what I normally do. And honestly, most people are very open. They are helpful. They want to help. They want to spread. They want to share what they have done. So that's how I've found a lot of mentors. The other thing I would say is, mentoring and allyship, they are very, very important, right? It's important to have allies at work as well. And it's important that you're also an ally to other folks at work. Like I said, this goes back to a lot of, collaboration and working in a group and working in a team. So I would say mentoring and allyship are very important things. So yeah, I have a mentor, and then I also mentor some young program managers at work. So it goes both ways.
So what do you mean? What's the difference between a mentor and an ally? Is there a difference?
That's a good one. Yes. So mentor is, I think there's a slight difference. A mentor is somebody who you reach out for certain specific goals, in your work life. Like, for example, I'm right now looking to grow into a bigger role. I'm looking to stretch myself and take on, more difficult and challenging roles. So for that, I have a mentor. Allies are somebody, who would help you. And, and I think ally is not, I guess a designation, but allies are somebody, who you are really close with, and they will help you in certain simple situation. Like, for example, you're in a difficult situation, or you're having a tough day, or you're in a big meeting and you're not, getting the airspace. Allies are somebody, who just watch out for you. They give you the space. They give you the opportunity. They're not like mentors, and it's not like, oh, will you be my mentor for a year or so? Allies are just, they help you in simple, small ways. But I think it helps. It helps to have allies, and it's important to be allied to others as well. We should be helpful and open to helping other folks. That really helps. No matter, the designation and what you do at work.
Absolutely. How about any tips for changing careers? What's the hardest part of changing your career?
That's a good one. Like I said, I was a dev before. I switched to be a PM. I would say one thing. You don't want to be in a position where you wake up in the morning and you're like, oh my God, it is that job again. You don't want to do that, right? So if you want to make a switch, right? For example, like I was a dev and I wanted to be a program manager. Do that. But before you do that, research and do some soul seeking on why do you want to do that, right? If you want to do a certain kind of role, what really excites you about the role? And also start building up some of the experiences. So make sure that, before you make the switch, you do some similar projects or you demonstrate those capabilities before you actually switch to a different role. It is hard, but I think it's a conscious step, and it should be a planned event. The other thing I would say is if somebody is looking to make a career switch or switch roles, take the perspectives of other people. Use your mentors, use the folks in your network to seek feedback. Ask them that, hey, this is what I want to do, and this is why I want to do. What do you think? What is your perspective? Do you think I'll be successful? So just don't do it because you want to. Get some feedback, think over it, and make it a planned event. But again, if you want to do it, you should do it, because the most important thing I feel is to be really happy at what you do. Like I said, we spend half our lives at work. So we should really enjoy it.
Absolutely. So kind of going off of that, everybody's busy and you've got full schedules that you're balancing. How do you balance a job search and a full-time job at the same time?
That's a tough one, I would say. I would say you have to make time, right? Because honestly, we all just get 24 hours a day. And if you're already, if you are working and you want to make a switch, it'll be tough for a few weeks, but you just have to carve out time. Maybe you have to, carve out some time early in the morning or late at night. There's no other way. We just have to be very conscious about it. And maybe for a couple of weeks the work-life balance will not be as great. But if you want to switch jobs and have to search, we have to make the best of the time that we have.
Mm-hmm.
But the good thing is that, it's not going to last forever. Maybe it's just for a couple of weeks or so. And then, maybe you'll find a new role and you'll move over, and then, you'll get back all the time that you were spending on job search.
Right. Good. Here's a different type of a question. Do you have any thoughts on navigating a salary discussion?
That's a great question. Yes, that is a very great question. And to be honest, a lot of women, a lot of young girls who go start working, we do not talk about our salary. We don't talk about money. Maybe it's a taboo thing, and I don't know why it is. It should not be, really. It is absolutely a good thing to talk about your salary. It's also a good thing to negotiate your salary. But before you do that, do your homework. Do not just go and say that, hey, I'm getting X, but I really want Y. That is not the way to do it. I guess do your research, try and see the role that you have been offered. What is, the base salary for that? Try some research. There are a lot of, like I said, internet is a friend. You can search online and you can get a good baseline numbers from Glassdoor and a couple other places. Do your homework and try and get a good baseline for what does a good salary look like. And based on that, if you want, you should do a negotiation. You should reach out. You should have a conversation. The other thing I would say is before you have the conversation, give a heads up to the recruiter or whoever you're reaching out for doing that conversation. Give them a heads up and have a good conversation. But I would absolutely encourage having that conversation, especially women. We sometimes don't do that. I think we underestimate ourselves for some reason, and we should not really.
I agree with you. I think that's very insightful. And your career advisor in our office, we have some resources and some, experience in these types of questions. So you're welcome to talk with your career advisor about that too.
Absolutely. Yes. Please do that, folks.
So we have a few minutes left. So what do you do in your spare time? How do you achieve that work-life balance we've been talking about?
That's a great question, Kris. I would start by saying that the way I look at this, it's not work-life balance, it's work-life integration. Especially, with pandemic, it's no longer that, you start your job at 9 and you're done at 6. It's more like, I have like bursts of work. Like, for example, I get up, I start work actually very early. As I start my work around 7-ish, but then, I take a break in the middle when I have to drop my kid off at the bus stop. Then, I take a break around lunch. So I feel I have a good work-life integration where, I've integrated my life along with work. So I've really made the best of this flexible work life that we have right now. What do I do in my spare time? Good question. A couple years back, I wanted to do canvas painting, so I picked up canvas painting. I would do that. It actually was good. I felt like it was very therapeutic. Like, it was de-stressing in some sense. And then I also like gardening. So around spring and summer, just plant some, flowers. Take care of them. Do some things of that nature. Also, I'm a busy mom. I have 2 kids, so don't get a lot of time. But canvas painting, gardening. I'm big into recycling things. So like, I make new things out of old things, or just, recycle, make something new. So those are just, I guess, my sort of hobbies that I do when I'm not working at work and at home.
That's a lot. That's a lot of different things you do. I can see you're very busy.
I like enjoying life, so I love doing what I really like. I think it's important. Otherwise, it can get really monotonous and boring.
Right. Absolutely. And then what's next for you?
I want to grow more. I recently got promoted last year, but I want to grow more. I want to stretch myself. I want to take on more hard infrastructure problems. Like I said, I work in SharePoint team and I work on the backend infrastructure team, and I want to solve hard problems. For some reason, hard technical issues really excite me. I want to go solve them. So I think that's what I want to do. I'm looking for the next big challenge and make a difference and move the needle and make our customers happy. So that's what I'm working towards.
That's great. Any last thoughts, advice, tips, suggestions?
I think it goes back to do what you enjoy. If you're in school, if you're a young alumni, you're a new grad, or you've been working for 15 years, life is short. So really make the most of it and enjoy and have fun, but at the same time do things in a very planned way. I think it's important to do that.
That sounds good. Lots of good advice and information. Thank you so much. I'm not sure if we have any last questions, but I'll bring in Victor at this point.
Perfect. Thank you, Kris and Nidhi, for all the helpful tips that were shared today. I know I learned a lot from all of you, and hope everyone who logged in learned a lot as well. But before we leave today, we encourage everyone here who has logged in to connect with us on all platforms of social media like Facebook and Instagram, Twitter, all of those. Links to those social media pages can be found in the chat box. So if you want to click on those, go right ahead and be our friend, like all of our comments and stuff like that. And in addition to the social media platforms, we encourage you all to join our newest RIT only platform. As mentioned by Kris, Tigers Connect. This platform really gives you the opportunity to connect with students, faculty, staff, and alumni all around the world. And if you'd like to be part of that and you'd like to register for the platform, click on the link also found in the chat box, or just visit tigersconnect.rit.edu. It's a free platform. It's a great platform, and a lot of alums and a lot of students have already been part of it. If you want more career-specific assistance from the university, from RIT, visit rit.edu/career services. Again, the link is also in the chat box, and you can find all the helpful stuff. Kris is an amazing individual, and I know she can help you out as well. In Talk About Career Services, our virtual career fair is coming up on October 14th. If you want to register for that, you go to rit.edu/events/virtual-career-fair. The link is also in the chat box. All the links that I'm going to talk about are in the chat box. So if I sound like a broken record, my apologies. But in addition to the virtual career fair that week, or next week actually, Our office is hosting a lot of virtual events for our alumni and students leading up to Brick City Homecoming and Family Weekend. So between October 12th and the 17th. These events include a masterclass with a celebrity chef, learn about tequila, even have the opportunity to meet our newest director for intercollegiate athletics, Jackie Nicholson. To see those events, visit rit.edu/alumni/events to register and check out all those events. Other than that, thank you all for joining us today. I really hope y'all learned a lot. Like I said, I certainly did. Have a great, wonderful rest of your week. Stay healthy. Definitely connect with us and go Tigers.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kris, Victor. And thank you so much to our interpreters as well.
Thank you all. Good night.